Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Rocket Chiro Podcast, the business and marketing podcast for chiropractors. Welcome again to this series where we're going to talk more to new chiropractors and chiropractors who are struggling. This is podcast number 8 in our series, and what we're going to talk about today is sort of the opposite of authority. Not that it's like the opposite of authority, but in the last podcast we talked about authority and its cheat code, and it's awesome, and it was a fun topic. This is like not a fun topic because we're going to talk about consistency. It's boring. It's not exciting. It's not the type of thing that puts butts in seats at seminars. And this is probably not going to be a podcast that a lot of people listen to because it's a boring topic. But we are going to talk about it. It is very important. One of the most important things that you're going to have to deal with as a chiropractor, as a human being. And so we're going to talk about it. Before I get too far into that, I do want to say, if you want some additional help, check out my Next Step program at rocketchiro.com. If you want a better chiropractic website, check out Rocket Chiropractic websites. All right. So there's so many things. Well, let me just start here. Nobody wants to be patient. And I understand that. When patients come into your practice and they've had a problem for like 30 years and they want one or two adjustments and they want to be better, we sort of look at that and we kind of laugh and we're just like, that's silly. It's ridiculous. Like, people are just being crazy. If somebody has a chronic problem, if somebody has, even if someone has an acute problem that is significant and they're just like, oh, they're just one or two adjustments ought to do it, right? We just know that that's crazy. But then when it comes to our own life, whether it is, networking or getting reviews or, adding to your income, building your business, building your reputation, whatever it happens to be, we're so incredibly impatient. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that chiropractors will make, that when I meet someone who's been out in practice for 10 years or 15 years, and they're doing well enough that they haven't had to close, but they're just struggling. They're continuing to struggle. They've never gotten to a place where there's some stability with their practice. When I meet that chiropractor, and I do meet them, generally they're very inconsistent and they're constantly trying to hit home runs. They're looking for like a trick. They're looking for a gimmick. They're looking for a secret. And maybe some of the fault lies in marketing and coaching and everybody else. And one of the things that I've kind of jokingly said over the years is, if I was a liar, I would make more money. I don't know if that's true or not, but you have so many people that'll tell you like, oh, you can double your income in the next 30 days. 10x your practice in the next 6 months or this year with this one little secret. Just sign up for my program, sign up for my thing, like get this piece of software, like, oh, AI is going to really change your practice and it's going to happen quick, like super quick. Generally speaking, big changes don't happen quickly. And when they do happen quickly, it's typically one of two things. Either it's a perfect storm of situations. And usually what I'll tell people, and I have this written down, is that, big changes happen when you take your existing talent, an opportunity, like a ripe opportunity, and something that you're interested in. And when those things sort of overlap, like where that overlaps, there's an opportunity for big change quickly. So you have a talent, you have an opportunity, you have interest. And if you're missing any of those components, you could be very interested in something like, let's say I'm really interested in juggling and I'm really good at it, but there's no opportunity for that to actually help my practice. So it doesn't matter. You could have an amazing opportunity to speak. You could have the ability to speak, but you absolutely hate speaking and you're not interested in doing it. Sort of undermines the whole thing. You end up self-sabotaging at that point. So there's a lot of different ways. If you look at all of this stuff and you say, well, where can I make the biggest change the quickest? I would say, look, where do your talents, your opportunity, and your interests, where do they overlap? And that's probably the area where you can make the most progress. The other scenario when you see big change happen quickly is it's sort of the concept of like a 20-year overnight success. It's like you're reading books, you're preparing, you're prepping, you're doing work, you're doing stuff after close, you're just work. And it's like nothing changed. And then sometimes you have situations where everything really changes quickly. And some people could even make the mistake of saying, you'll see this sometimes with celebrities or artists. It's like, oh, they came out of nowhere. It's like, did they come out of nowhere? Did they just pick up the guitar yesterday and start playing and singing and now all of a sudden they're a huge success? Or have they been grinding for a lot of years, working on their talents, working on their skills when no one cared and no one paid attention, no one thought they were a big deal? And then all of a sudden they got the right opportunity, they got in front of the right person, and then everything really, really took off. Those things do happen. But if you think that if you don't understand how big change happens quickly and the importance that consistency plays in that, especially when you're trying to get some momentum going, that's that second scenario where I talked about where that kind of 20-year overnight success, consistency is a huge component there. If you don't understand that, you start to devalue the foundation of the thing that is going to help you be successful. Consistency is very much a foundational thing. So you could look at something and say, because the most important things oftentimes are not the things that are the most urgent in the moment. And this is true for life in general. It's if you go about your day and about your week and about your life constantly just putting out fires, the problem as a small business owner is you're always going to have more things to do than you have time. And if you don't have the wisdom and you don't have the discipline to identify the things that are important and consistently do those things, regardless of how you feel about it, and in many cases, regardless of the outcome. Ultimately, there needs to be an outcome. But there is often a point before you see an outcome where you just have to reward the behavior. You have to reward the activity. You have to reward the consistency. You have to celebrate that. Because you're just going to go around putting out fires where it's like, oh, this is what human nature is. Human nature tends to, if there's a million things to do, and there always is as a small business owner, if there's a million things to do, what we tend to do is we do the things that we like to do or enjoy doing, which makes sense. That's just human nature. And we avoid the things that we don't like to do. But what happens if the things you don't like to do are super important and you're not disciplining yourself to do it anyway and consistently do it? They just don't get done. And in those scenarios, you never get where you want to go. And what happens a lot of times is chiropractors will end up trying something for a little bit. I had a client really, really early in the process of me helping chiropractors, and he jumped on board with my Next Step program and was asking some questions. I was kind of looking at his stuff, and I really got the impression from some of the things that he was saying that this guy jumps around a lot. Like he's just not consistent. He just, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that. And my program was the latest thing that he was trying. And sure enough, it was probably 6 weeks after joining the program. So he's a month and a half in. And I'm going to go in a different direction. I found something else I want to do. I'm going to go in a different direction, which is fine. I'm not going to hold that against him. But he's the only one that I can remember that I sent a message to him and I just said, hey, I don't normally say anything to people when they close other than you're welcome to come back whenever you want, assuming they're welcome to come back, which is 99.9% of my clients. But I said, hey, I normally don't say anything, but I just want to offer you a piece of advice. Whatever you do next, just stick with it. Just learn the system. Whatever they're teaching you, give it a fair shake. Because whether it's a good system or a bad system, like how are you even going to know that if you don't implement the system, if you don't learn it, if you don't try it, if you don't give it a fair shake? That's consistency. You have to be consistently learning things, because the future you, and I say this so many times on my podcast, the future you knows things that you don't currently know and has habits that you don't currently have. The only way you get to that point is consistency. You have to consistently be learning. You have to consistently be implementing new things. And it is a discipline. And it doesn't feel good. You don't sell seats to a seminar saying like, hey, how to be more consistent. If I were to tell you, hey, you can 10x your thing with no work. We used to see this. It was super popular years ago, where it was like 20 extra, 30 extra new patients into your practice without doing a thing. Well, that sounds way better than consistency. That sounds way better than discipline. That sounds way better than identify the important things, don't do the unimportant things, and do the hard work instead of going out and playing golf or doing something else you'd rather do. But the reality is that unless you're in an unusual situation, unless you're in a very not normal situation, unless you happen to be a celebrity and you got the cheat code, right? We talked about last time. Unless that's the case, where your life is somehow way different and way easier than everybody else's, you're going to have to consistently do the things. You have to consistently do the things that are really important. So if you want to get more reviews, you have to be consistent. If you want to get more referrals, you have to be consistent. If you want to grow your practice, you got to be consistent doing marketing. If you want to have better staff, if you want to have better processes, you have to be consistent about trying new things. And when you say you're going to do it, you actually do it and give it a chance to give you some feedback so you can know whether your system is a good idea or a bad idea. You're going to have to consistently schedule time to say, should I keep this? Should I tweak it? Should I scrap it? One of the things that I have said to every single Next Step member that I have talked to for the last however many years is I have said to them the two biggest reasons that people fail when when people don't do as well with Next Step as they want to. The two biggest reasons are they try to do too many things at once, or they don't set aside time to learn and to grow. That last one has a lot to do with consistency. Now, trying to do too many things at once and multitasking, that's a different conversation. It's not super practical. It doesn't really work, in spite of the fact that you might think you're getting more done. You're not. Different conversation. But one of my big tips for you is, if you want to be consistent, schedule time. If it's important enough to do, have a plan, schedule time. If you're not going to delegate it, let's say you're going to have, even if you delegate it, let's say getting reviews. I want to get more reviews. I'm going to have somebody send out review requests for me. It's like, okay, well, at the end of the month, you need to make sure that you update that person or that software or whatever. If it's not happening automatically, you need to make sure you update them on the new patients that came in that month, and be consistent about it. Because if you're not consistent about it, how are they sending out review requests to people that they don't even know exist? You're being inconsistent. If you're doing it yourself, one of my clients who does really well on Instagram, who's done incredibly well for his practice, especially considering he has not been in practice for very long, just a few years. And he does great with getting reviews. And as far as I know, unless something has changed, he's not using some sort of fancy software or some sort of expensive program. He's just consistently asking his people for reviews. And I don't know the exact process, but maybe at the end of the month, he's just like, hey, these are the people that came in last month, because he doesn't want to ask them right away necessarily. Or maybe he does ask them right away. I don't know. But he's like, hey, these are the people that came in over the last month. I haven't asked them for reviews yet. I'm going to send them a text. What is it going to be? 10 people, 20 people, 30 people, 50 people? It's not that many. But he's being consistent. Instead of having 2 or 3 reviews or 15 or 16 reviews, he has hundreds of reviews. And he hasn't been in practice that long. It's consistency. And when I see someone when someone has 20 reviews and they've been in practice for 15 years, obviously you don't have a system and you're not being consistent. Like, this is not a priority for you. Consistency is so important. My dad was someone who taught me this a long time ago, and I would say my dad was like the staple of consistency. He's just the golden retriever of human beings. He's got all of the things, all the difficult things in life that are not flashy, my dad had in spades. And super high character guy. And when my dad would talk to me about stuff like this and teach me and set an example with these things, consistency being one of them, I just thought he was boring. Like, dad's a fuddy-dud. He's not boring. He's not the cool dad. I look back and I go, you know what? I was wrong. He was doing the difficult thing by being consistent. And he reaped the rewards of that in his life. My dad wasn't a home run hitter. And I got to tell you, most people are not home run hitters. I'm not a home run hitter. You're probably not a home run hitter. Be Tony Gwynn, which I know is not a reference that most of you understand. Just get the bat on the ball. Don't strike out. Get hits. Be consistent. You'll be glad you did. It's the foundation for successful practice. All right, guys, that's it. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Thank you for listening to this series. If you want more help, check out my Next Step program. If you want a better website, check out the Rocket Chiropractic websites. I'm done. I'm out of here. Talk to you in the next episode. See ya.